Mayor Live. And as you know, I think we're coming to you from New Hampshire. And we are on the eve, the day before the night next, in which we are going to have a historic debate. And I don't say that lightly or would I say it normally? Here's how it's historic. Well, first of all, it's probably going to have more of an impact on this election than any debate has ever had, maybe since the first one between Nixon and Kennedy, because there's been so much expectation and so much stereotyping, which is a nice way of saying character assassination of both candidates. Now, I would say the character assassination, from my point of view, of Joe Biden is, mild in comparison to the massive crimes that he committed and the evil man that he is, just down to the way he treats his granddaughter, the people that he's gotten killed, the way he ignores what he's done to the border, the way he ignores what he's done with fentanyl. But of course, there are people on his side that would come up with equal, although I think fictitious charges against Trump. But both have a stereotype that has been developed by the other side, either presenting the truth or presenting propaganda, and both are going to be debating that stereotype more than they are going to be debating each other. Trump is not going to defeat Biden, and Biden's not going to defeat Trump. One of them is going to defeat themselves. That's what will happen. I guess the only outcome that could leave things relatively where they are is that Biden has an average performance, not a sterling one, which would, of course, would be impossible. But if he did, it would, shock everyone. But he'd have a performance similar to the one that he had in the last debate, which would leave him standing and not particularly hurt by this debate. And Trump, the same thing. Trump have a performance within the scope of what people expect, even if he interrupts a little and does the things that the people that don't like him don't like. That would leave things pretty much the way they are. If either one of them can break a stereotype, however, things change dramatically. I mean, if Biden could act like a genius, it would make a very big difference. Ain't gonna happen. But if Trump can convince people that he isn't what they are saying he is, a fascist, a Nazi, a communist, a mean, horrible, awful man that wants to take away your rights, it sounds like Biden, really. But they paint that picture over and over. A convicted criminal. They just paint that picture over and over again, and therefore a Trump that is measured, professional, intelligent, makes sense, talks about his record. I think that's the key to this. That's the key to winning this debate. I think most people agree with that, and the real question is, will the president agree with that? I think he does. Will he carry it out? I think he will. And then what will the media do with it? Presidential debates have. I don't think they've decided many of the elections, nor do we remember most of what happened at them. We have general recollections of who won the debate. Most of the time, it merges into who won the election. Not always the case, by the way. Mondale won the first debate against Reagan and lost the election. Romney won the first debate against Obama and lost the election. So it isn't true that people winning debates necessarily win elections. It's probably more the case than not, but it isn't completely. I'm going to show you, I think, how few really memorable events there were. And we can sum it up pretty quickly, and we'll do it again. We're going to we'll add a few more maybe tomorrow night or a little later. But these are if you got to really boil it down to the 5 or 6 or 7 that are the ones that you remember. And I've been alive for all of them and listened to all of them. And the first one, there isn't like one moment from that debate, but it was the first debate. The rest, nobody remembers at all. Many people thought Nixon won some of the remaining, I think they were 3 debates, and won it both on television and radio. Many people think Nixon won the first debate on radio. There is no doubt that John F. Kennedy won it on television. So let's show just an excerpt from that, and you'll see that television was very different also. Neither one of these men are sitting down, by the way.
Franklin Roosevelt said in his inaugural that this generation of Americans has a rendezvous with destiny. I think our generation of Americans has the same rendezvous. The question now is, can freedom be maintained under the most severe attack it has ever known? I think it can be. And I think in the final analysis, it depends upon what we do here. I think it's time America started moving again.
And now the opening statement by Vice President Richard M. Nixon.
Smith, Senator Kennedy. The things that Senator Kennedy has said, many of us can agree with. There is no question but that we cannot discuss our internal affairs in the United States without recognizing that they have a tremendous bearing on our international position. There is no question but that this nation cannot stand still because we are in a deadly competition, a competition not only with the men in the Kremlin, but the men in Peking. We're ahead in this competition, as Senator Kennedy, I think, has implied. But when you're in a race, the only way to stay ahead is to move ahead. And I subscribe completely to the spirit that Senator Kennedy has expressed tonight, the spirit that the United States should move ahead.
I mean, that was, many people say he lost that debate because he looked bad. Now, later on in the debate, he had a little sweat under here. Kennedy looked tanner. I didn't think so from what we saw. I do think he made a critical mistake, however, he didn't make in the later debates. That's a heck of a way to begin. 3 times he agreed with his opponent. I don't know that he made a point for himself. I think Senator Kennedy will agree. I think Senator Kennedy, and what he did in doing that, right from the very beginning of that debate, he lifted him to his level. After all, he was the vice president of the United States. The other guy was a senator. He was important, but he didn't have that experience. And there was always a question of whether John Kennedy had enough experience. He had debated Khrushchev. He had negotiated for Eisenhower. Eisenhower, particularly in the second term, when he got a little weaker and older, he used him quite a bit. And he put him immediately. The debate was even from the get-go. As I agree with Senator Kennedy, he did it 3 times throughout the debate. He would look. It was almost as if he wanted to show how similar they were, and then show the little differences that exist. Don't know what that strategy was all about. He abandoned it later, but it was too late. And therefore, I think the loss of the debate was even more substantive than it's given credit for, because a lot of people think he lost the debate because of the way he looked, and Kennedy won because of the way he looked. I think he lost the debate based on what you just heard, because that was Senator Kennedy. I agree with Senator Kennedy. Must have come up another 7 or 8 times during the debate. So imagine tomorrow night if either one of them begins. Biden, after all this time telling you that Trump is a second coming of Hitler, said, "Well, I agree with Donald Trump," or Donald Trump, I agree with President. If it will work, then what do we got to vote for you for if you agree with? Now, the second really big moment in a debate that I can remember. I mean, I don't remember the next 3 Kennedy-Nixon debates. Johnson didn't debate. He got away with it. Johnson never debated, and then he pulled out. The debates between Nixon and Humphrey are not memorable, to me at least. The debates with McGovern and Nixon, I don't remember. Johnson and, President Ford and Carter, I don't think so. I think they came, I think they kind of split the debates in terms of who won and who lost. Ford did much better in the debates than people had thought. Maybe it was the expectation that he was always painted as very dumb, and of course he wasn't. And he handled himself very well in the debates. And I think it's what made that election so close, because there really was an election where just about every other Democrat but Jimmy Carter had a landslide. That was the post-Watergate Democrat takeover of the entire government. At that time, they thought Republicans would never come back after what happened with Nixon. But Republicans came roaring back with probably their best candidate for president, maybe as a candidate forever. As a president, who does he matches up with a Lincoln but as a candidate, I don't know what kind of candidate Lincoln was. He was an unbelievable candidate. Let's listen to just one little excerpt from the first debate where, I think there's one little statement that just won the debate.
Political career campaigning around this nation against Medicare. Now we have an opportunity to move toward national health insurance with an emphasis on the prevention of disease, an emphasis on outpatient care, not inpatient care, an emphasis on hospital cost containment to hold down the cost of hospital care for those who are ill, an emphasis on catastrophic health insurance, so that if a family is threatened with being wiped out economically because of a very high medical bill, then the insurance would help pay for it. These are the kind of elements of a national health insurance important to the American people. Governor Reagan, again, typically is against such a proposal.
Governor? There you go again. When I opposed Medicare, there was another piece of legislation meeting the same problem before the Congress. I happened to favor the other piece of legislation and thought that it would be better for the senior citizens and provide better care than the one that was finally passed. I was not opposing the principle of providing care for them. I was opposing one piece of legislation as versus another.
Well, you see, from the very beginning, when Carter, the two-shot was unbelievable for Reagan. They must have paid the cameraman to do that, because you had this very, very complex, detailed little argument that no one really quite understood. You had an aura of possible socialized medicine, and you had this big, tall, very, very confident man standing there with a very nice grin on his face, not mocking, but like, are you for real kind of look. And then he just, there you go again. Instead of, that was stupid, that was terrible, that was awful, you're a jerk. And throughout, that was Ronald Reagan's style. He killed you with humor and with a certain kind of old-fashioned gentlemanly behavior. Then again, the next big moment in a debate comes 4 years later, when very, very surprisingly, the great communicator, which is what Ronald Reagan was known as, had a bad first debate, largely because he was overprepared. Something that Biden's got to worry about, maybe. Now, the nature of Biden's mind could be such that he's not going to be overprepared. He's not going to remember most of what he was told. So they have to keep repeating it, hoping that it'll stay there. In the case of Reagan, it was very heavily scripted. There was a plan that was worked out for what he was going to say and how he was going to say it. And that really began the expression after the debate started by Nancy Reagan, let Reagan be Reagan. I think a couple of the people on his campaign staff were fired, not by him, he never fired anyone, but by Nancy. Let's listen to the highlight of that debate, though, which again was humor.
Issue that I think has been lurking out there for 2 or 3 weeks, and cast it specifically in national security terms. You already are the oldest president in history, and some of your staff say you were tired after your most recent encounter with Mr. Mondale. I recall yet that President Kennedy had to go for days on end with very little sleep during the Cuba Missile Crisis. Is there any doubt in your mind that you would be able to function in such circumstances?
Not at all, Mr. Truitt, and I want you to know that also I will not make age an issue of this campaign. I am not going to exploit for political purposes my opponent's youth and inexperience. If I still have time, I might add, Mr. Truitt, I might add that
I don't think in a presidential debate, anyone I've ever seen, including the ones I were in, I've never seen such an honest laughter as that. And they couldn't stop. I mean, it was like, as you thought about it more, it got funnier. You could see the moderator, he first laughed, tried to stop. Then I think he thought about it again, and he just laughed again. Now, it also is the benefit of an actor being able to deliver that, because it wasn't only the way in which he, not just the words were tremendous. I mean, the line was fabulous, but that whole kind of very almost shy way in which he almost didn't want to say it, and sort of the all-American boy criticizing who doesn't want to criticize, and it was hilarious. It was just hilarious. The weeks in between the first debate and the second debate, people had argued that because of his shockingly poor performance, he had lost it, and that sort of ended that issue. Boom. I don't think we've ever seen anyone. Kennedy was a great debater, and Clinton was a really good debater and a good communicator, and at times Obama was, and of course Reagan is also. But we've never seen anyone with that ability to destroy and look like a good guy. Wow. That is frightening talent in politics. When you can do what Biden or Trump want to do tomorrow night to each other and make people laugh about it. Whoa, you are fearsome if you can do that. The next one we will look at is a negative one, really. Unfair, I thought then, I think now. But I'm going to tell you what it led to after you see it. This is Clinton and Bush, and kind of Clinton's campaign, of course, was "It's the economy, stupid." If you remember, I think that was Carville's expression, and that Bush, who had at one point had probably the highest approval rating of any American president after the first Gulf War. The economy got hit hard, and he got blamed for it. Reality is that the recovery began a month before they're having this discussion. But economic recoveries have to occur. Well, I'm relevant right now. Those prices better go down right now, because if they go down in September or October, people have already made up their mind about it. It's been too long. That's what happened there. And again, Bush was a much better president than he was a campaigner, and his son was a better campaigner. And he didn't know how to work his way out of the economic situation that he was in, nor did he know how to politically take advantage of the economic turnaround that actually occurred before he left office. But here's something that is much more powerful than words. Let's the impression that people get from this, particularly the way it was spun.
How has the national debt personally affected each of your lives? And if it hasn't, how can you honestly find a cure for the economic problems of the common people if you have no... How has the national debt personally affected each of your lives? And if it hasn't, how can you honestly find a cure for the economic problems?
I mean, among other things, during a debate, you've got to think about, well, how much time do I have? I have so many points I have to make. Up until that time, people would look at their watch during a debate. More often, people would put it down. They'd take it off, and put it down in front of them. And I can remember the first presidential debate that I did. As I was about to go out to the podium, my campaign manager said, "Give me a watch." "You're not taking a watch out there." I said, "Why not? I want to." "Don't you remember Bush?" I said, "Oh." I did 11 debates. I never wore a watch for any of them. Nobody else did. You could have told me whatever time it was. I kept looking at the clocks to try to zone in on it. I kept trying to look at the clocks that were there and available in the studio. But you really have to get in your head. You get that 1 minute response, 2 minute response. We don't all carry in our heads what is exactly 1 minute or what's exactly 2 minutes. So you want to watch that watch to sort of train yourself. But that became, he was bored. He's tired of being president. He doesn't really, he's not really interested, or the fact that it was an African-American girl didn't help. And I don't think any of that was intended. I think he just thought it was perfect. Of course, you look at your watch during the debate. So now let's look at Trump and Hillary, which was I think this might have been one of many moments in which I really do believe that although he and Biden had a very, very close debate 4 years ago, and some people could say Biden won it and some people could say Trump won it, but it wasn't like a knockout blow. In his debates with Hillary Clinton, except for the fact that the media kept trying to prop her up, he really knocked the hell out of her. It was probably one of the more stunning defeats. Carter and Ford, they thought Carter was going to really destroy Ford, and Ford won some of them. And a lot of them turned out that way. Even Nixon, after he lost the first debate to Kennedy, won a few. She went from bad to worse. But here's one of the things he would do that I think drove her nuts, but very effective.
Check him in real time. Last time at the first debate, we had millions of people fact-checking, so I expect we'll have millions more fact-checking because, it's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Yeah, because you'd be in jail.
Secretary Clinton.
We want to remind the audience to please not talk out loud. Please do not applaud. You're just wasting time.
He couldn't bring himself to say, "Don't applaud," and laugh. He couldn't bring himself to do it because it's stiff. Oh, my goodness. I think of the difference between these guys and like Sam Donaldson. Sam Donaldson pronounced once that Biden, it was good that they had caught him in all his lies early in his career because he'd be finished. You think there'd be any Democratic liberal reporter that would be willing to say that now? Of course not. They're all like Anderson Cooper there, some kind of a like they're paid by Pravda. I mean, that was ridiculous. That just happened to be a very funny statement.
Yeah, he couldn't laugh.
He couldn't laugh at it. He had to, and then he almost said applause.
Can we watch it?
He said, "Please don't react,"
Yeah.
because he didn't want to acknowledge that the audience just were caught off guard and they applauded for it.
Let's watch.
So let's watch now. Let's watch this because to you, my friends, my fellow citizens, the last time this man debated on a presidential stage, he lied his ass off. I mean, I don't remember presidential debates with lies of this magnitude ever. And listen to them now in light of what you know about the hearings and the hard drive, and just listen.
Race. We're talking about the issue
from hell.
President Trump, we're talking about race right now, and I do want to stay on the issue of race. President Trump,
I have to respond to that.
Please,
because look,
very quickly.
There are 50 former national intelligence folks who said that what he's accusing me of is a Russian plant. They have said that this has all the five former heads of the CIA, both parties, say what he's saying is a bunch of garbage. Nobody believes it except his and his good friend Rudy Giuliani.
You mean the laptop is now another Russia hoax?
That's exactly what.
Is this where you're going? This is where he's going. The laptop is Russia,
Gentlemen,
Russia.
I want to stay on the issue of race.
You have to be kidding. Here we go again with Russia.
We're going to continue.
Back to you.
In light of what we know now, and in light of what he knew at the time, meeting Biden, that was about as horrendous a lie as ever told in American politics. I mean, the FBI had validated that hard drive in December of 2019 completely as Hunter's hard drive and messages as Hunter's messages. This is almost a year later. And as the vice president of the United States, he was at meetings in which Hillary's fraud was discussed openly, the fact that she paid for the Steele affidavit. I mean, he was fully aware and involved in. He even offered to help with some of the false evidence that was going to be created. So to say that this was totally false, and he just had absolute confidence that it was going to remain. At this point, we already encountered the startling censorship of it, and he had gotten within a day 51 of the leading intelligence experts of the last 20 years, almost all of them, to sign a letter that the hard drive had the earmarks of Russian disinformation. Of course, these geniuses didn't give one example, nor, in retrospect, when they were examined and talked to the extent that anybody cared, they never even looked at it. They never even looked at it or looked into it. And even the guy who organized it, Morell, said he did it in order to create a talking point for Biden in the debate. What he did was create a lie that affected my reputation really in a very, very damaging way. He basically called me, I mean, they went on to elaborate, Russian pawn. It had a lot to do with a lot of the destruction of my law practice. And of course, the idea was to defeat Donald Trump, to keep him out of the White House. 10% immediately afterwards, when more of it came out, said they would have voted differently if they knew about it. Now that 10% reaches about 20%. Trump would have won in what he talks about now, too big to rig, had that been disclosed. Now, shall we play the other one? This is equally as startling a lie from what you now know is uncontroverted.
Penny from any foreign source ever in my life. I have not taken a single penny from any country whatsoever, ever. My son has not made money in terms of this thing about, what are you talking about, China. I have not had, the only guy made money from China is this guy. He's the only one. Nobody else has made money from China.
So question to you. Very
No
quickly,
basis
Mr.
for that. Everybody investigated that. No one said anything he did was wrong in Ukraine.
That is about as astounding a lie as you can get. We have the checks of the money coming from China. There's within 2 years of when he made this statement, his son's company received almost $5 million in wires from the Chinese Communist company, a Chinese Communist company. His son is on audio tape saying that he was in business with the spy chief of China and one of the highest members of the Red Chinese government. He gets checks that break down into the percentages that are listed in the contract describing him as the big guy. That was a contract with Red China. There's no doubt. Now, they've moved back to a new position now. There isn't any doubt in the world that his son got millions of dollars from China. His son admits it. His son says it. The checks and wires are there. The checks to him that look like the 10% that was due and owing on the contract that they had are there to Joe Biden. And then there's the general overall testimony that is disregarded all the time. When they say that he didn't receive any, first of all, he said his son didn't receive any money. You noticed that, right? Well, I mean, his son received millions of dollars from China, millions and millions of dollars, all of which there are records of. And he received at that time checks from the company and from his brother, who was part of the deal, that amount to, in the case of the whacking up of about $1 million they got, it was almost exactly the 20% the 10% that he would get. But then all throughout his life, his son has been paying for everything. And his son has given evidence that is available. When they say there's no evidence that Joe Biden got money, well, how about this? For the last 30 years, I've given half my salary to my father and paid all the expenses of the family. Where does the salary come from? His salary over the last 10 years before Biden ran for president came from an organized criminal in Ukraine. It came from an organized criminal in China, in Russia, Budarina. It came from members of the Chinese party. There, the amount exceeds 31 million that went to Hunter. There's no doubt that it went to Hunter. And this tells you what Hunter did with it. Hunter tells you what he did with it. Under anybody's definition of evidence, what you are looking at right now is a piece of evidence. It even has a name in the law of evidence. It's called an admission. And it's admissible as an exception to the hearsay rule. I mean, only Judge Mershon would probably keep that out. No other judge in Anglo-American law would ever keep that out. Like no other judge in Anglo-American law would ever take a non-unanimous verdict for a criminal case, except a judge who operated the way a judge would operate in East Berlin or Soviet China, Russia, or Nazi Germany, or present China. But look at that. Just look at that. You never get to see that. That sums up the whole racketeering case. For 30 years, it's really hard. But don't worry. I won't let you do what Pop did to me and have to give him half my salary. Explains the whole thing. And of course, it's hidden. Even though it's out there, nobody ever puts any emphasis on it. Even the conservatives don't rely on that very much. Nor do they rely on the one where Hunter announces to his father that he's a danger to Biden's grandchildren. And Biden doesn't give a damn. Just like he doesn't give a damn about Navy. For 30 years, it's really hard, but don't worry. Unlike Pop, I won't make you give me half of your salary. That's testimony that he gave the money to his father that he was earning. And now you go back and look at what he was earning, and he was earning it from criminals who had every reason to give it to him to have his father's influence, and were constantly seeking meetings with his father, constantly wanted to know what his father thought or did, wanted his father's help. In the case of Burisma, in order to fix the case, he was paid. He was paid to extort or pressure the president of Ukraine to fire the prosecutor of Mr. Zlochevsky and of Hunter Biden, replaced by another prosecutor who dropped the case the way they do in New York, the way Bragg drops cases, either for ideological reasons or who the hell knows what. In the case of this situation, they did it for money. And don't fool yourself. The president of Ukraine made a fortune on this too, which, just to bring it up to date and to show you how it affects the national security of the United States, everything I'm telling you is completely known to Zelensky. And he's got all the evidence about the corruption within his government, which he's covering up, in large part because, well, there's another piece of evidence that $1 million or so, or was it $1 million or $4 million, I don't remember now, came into Hunter, and some of that went to Joe when Joe was vice president. The guy who arranged that is Zelensky's mentor. Very close little group there. Very close little group of criminals. So that debate's going to start tomorrow night. Maybe they'll start with that. I mean, Trump's got a lot of things against him in the debate. He's got two of the two moderators hate him. I mean, one of them has described him as being like Hitler, and the other one has accused him of leading an insurrection against the United States. So it's not exactly, but he's used to that. It's like being on trial before Judge Mershon, who paid money to the Stop Trump movement. Imagine the guys put in charge of your case who paid money to the Stop Trump movement and whose daughter is making millions by making fun of you. So he's used to that. I don't think Dana Bash, or who I know, and I really like Dana Bash, and I do not understand how she has gone off the rails this way. I don't understand it. I don't understand how you can think that January 6th was an insurrection when nobody brought a gun to it. And the only person dead is one of those people in a what looks like a first-degree homicide case never investigated. And no empathy at all for three other of the protesters, the so-called protesters, were killed too. All those stories about the police being not true. The police officer that made the big thing about having him lie in state, and I think every police officer should be allowed to lie in state, but not under false pretenses. And she won't turn over. She, meaning Pelosi, won't turn over the documents. And the committee has destroyed a lot of the documents. I have a pretty good idea which ones, too, because I gave them some of those that would have been very, very helpful in a murder prosecution of that police officer. I saw that murder that night. From the very beginning, I knew that there was a very serious problem with January 6th, that a first-degree murder had taken place, and they were covering it up. Well, we'll take a short break, and we'll be right back.
Here we are, pretty much at the beginning of the process here at this pristine, I call it a laboratory. It's not like a factory, it's like a hospital. This is the beginning of the process for roasting. Deep green, very good quality. Most people don't use this quality. We deal with small farmers because we like to know who we're dealing with. They give us the highest quality, all organic, non-GMO. You should know all Arabica beans, no Robusto, all Arabica. They're going to go into the roaster, and it'll get roasted for about 20 minutes or so. Oh, my goodness, look at these. My goodness. You're going to want to specially order these. This is what goes into Rudy's coffee.
Hello? I just had something to eat. I'm sorry. I was hungry. So later on when we finish up, we'll go back to the debate and Ted and I will discuss it a little. It is an extraordinarily important debate. And I would be shocked, but I've been shocked before if it doesn't move the needle one way or the other. Very often they don't. Very few debates. I mean, a couple that we showed you were consequential debates. The first debate between Kennedy and Nixon brought them even. Ford made the race in 76 much closer than anybody thought it would be, because remember, Republicans were getting wiped out all over the country. I mean, they almost had a veto-proof majority in the House and Senate, and that was a close election. And I think the debates did that between him and Jimmy Carter. The debates helped Ronald Reagan, but I don't think he won so big in both cases. I don't think you can say the debates. He won re-election because of the same reason why Trump should have, because he had such a good record. He won election. Well, I guess you would have to say the debates had something to do with it because he was so much better a candidate. He was, and also seemed so much safer for the country. Well, I don't think debates usually win or lose elections. We really haven't had a presidential election where a startling thing was done that you lost the election just because of that. Even that watch thing, there was a lot more to that Clinton win, and it didn't help. But I think without the other things, the election would have come out the other way. But I think this debate, I just doubt, and we'll see, we'll know right away after the debate or within a day or two if we're right about this. But do you think it'll move the needle one way or the other?
What? The
debate tomorrow night.
In the short term, sure. I mean, like you put it out there and analyzed it, I thought, perfectly, Mayor. There's a chance that because of how the expectations have been set, there's a chance Joe Biden comes out of it just like, he's not going to perform well, but if he can just reach that, minimum threshold, the media will give him a pass. Of course, President Trump is expected to do well, right? People think of him as a very vivacious, energetic person who's quick-witted, good humor, can be a part of any conversation. So because of all the expectations have been set, there's a good chance it doesn't move the needle. But then again, there's also a chance that Joe Biden has a moment in front of 100 million people. I guess
that's the thing that could really change things. And take away the lying that his people are doing. That they're changing tapes and the guy's demented.
By the way, what's with 8 days off, hiding off at the camp to study or to prepare?
You just forget the debate if the poor guy's got to spend 8 days preparing for it. It's ridiculous.
Doesn't that tell us what?
He took 8 days off as president.
He's president of the United States.
Give you an idea. He doesn't do anything as president. And meanwhile, while he takes the 8 days off, women and children are getting raped and murdered by the people he lets into the country. Jocelyn Nungari, today it came out, yesterday it came out that those two animals that attacked her, it was like they put her through a long period of time of beating her and taking advantage of her. Turns out she fought back. Johan Jose Rangel Martinez still had marks on his hands and other parts of his body from the fight that she put up. She's a little girl. I mean, she's a baby. and the accomplice said that he tried to stop. The accomplice is Franklin Jose Peña Ramos. According to him, he tried to stop Rangel Martinez from jumping on her and attacking her, but was not successful. And when offered to do the same thing, he refused to do it. Now, is that true or not? I don't know. But it is true, I guess, that the wounds are only on Rangel Martinez's body of her fighting back. What a horrendous thing to think about. And, you know, I don't want you to have to think about it, except for the fact that it's going to happen to other people if we don't get rid of Biden. And it is happening to other people. Look at the poor mom. I'm looking at the mom and I'm thinking, as a father and grandfather, how do you live after this? How do you live after this? I don't know. Well, the mother of Jocelyn, of course, yesterday was very, very vocal about how I think she actually put more of it on Mayorkas, because Mayorkas very, very coldly never even used the name of her daughter and trying to dismiss it. But today, the Marin family made it clear, and Rachel Marin is the 37-year-old mother of 4 children who was killed by Victor Martinez Hernandez from El Salvador, in and out 4 times, and never held. And just yesterday, Biden closed another detention center, so we won't have any place to hold future Victor Martinez's who will come in and rape your children. He should be right now building more of them. But he doesn't hold anybody in confinement the way Reagan did, or the way presidents did, who had some concern for your safety. And this is not because he's senile. He's been like this all his career. You know, it's really outrageous. It's really outrageous when you think of the damage he's done. The overall picture is we don't have a country anymore. You can't have a country without a border. You can't have a country without something that distinguishes you from the rest of the world. So how do you know you're in Italy? Everybody speaks Italian. They all have Italian backgrounds for 2,000 years. How do you know you're in France? Same thing. How do you know you're in America? We don't have the same background. As Abraham Lincoln said, we agree to the same set of values. Well, these people don't agree to our set of values. It's just ridiculous to say that. I mean, Adams, who likes to say, oh, give us your tired and your poor. Yeah, give us your tired and your poor that you take out of mental institutions. Yeah, they probably get very tired in those mental institutions. They need a little trip across the Atlantic. You don't think Maduro's doing that? Well, then you're crazy. You take a look at these people. Where do you think they came from? Well-established, very traditional two-parent homes. Watch them coming in over the border. Take a good look. You can smell out criminals. And there are a lot of them. And they cover it up, meaning the government covers it up. There's a lot more of it than you think. But, you know, it's going to keep haunting him because he caused it. He actually got out there 4 years ago during campaign season and invited them to surge to the border. But when you say surge to the border to Maduro, he says, oh, yeah, okay, thank you, Joe. I'll let out my insane asylum. Well, what you'd be doing is following what Castro did in 1978, 79 to Carter, and emptying out his jails, his prisons, and insane asylums, and sending them to the U.S. and getting a lot of our children and our women killed then, too. Another Democrat. Probably he models himself on Carter. The Biden administration is now also, I mean, I don't think there's ever been an administration that covers up as much as they do, because they are actually a fascist administration. You see the way they handle trials and criminal cases as crooked prosecutors who are framing people for political purposes, using the criminal system where they have to make up the charges. I mean, to have 4 charges against the leading candidate of the Republican Party in the election year is so obvious that it's politicized that you got to be a fool not to realize it. Well, a couple of months ago, you might remember the FBI director, in an effort to protect his sorry backside, said we've got an awful lot of terrorists in this country. We've got way more terrorists than we've ever had before, and I'm really worried. Well, a couple of weeks ago, or maybe a month ago, 2 illegal aliens tried to crash into Quantico Marine Base, which is also a base for the FBI. It was hidden. They didn't even tell the Pentagon for 8 days. Now, all we know is that they're 2 Jordanian illegals. There is a little rumor that one of them is associated with a terrorist group. And the question is, was this an attempt to gain intelligence and information for an attack of Quantico, which is the main training center on the East Coast for the FBI and for the Marines, and also has a lot of sensitive information and files and records and the Biden administration will not explain what has happened to these people. These 2 Jordanians, one of whom the leaks from his administration say was on the terrorist watch list, but we don't know, since we don't know who they are. You talk about that aspect of fascism, then we move to. We move to the trial in Manhattan, where the sentencing is coming up next week, and the judge, to just make things even more confusing, has lifted some of the gag order, but not all. So he can talk about the judge now, and he can talk about the court, I guess, but he can't talk about the prosecutors. He can't talk about the witnesses because they're afraid. At the same time, he's in the middle of a presidential election, and one of his contentions is that the prosecutor of this case was a scoundrel, a well-known scoundrel that could only have been selected by Garland because Garland wanted the case fixed. I mean, after all, he did already fix a case that ended up in an 8-0 a reversal in the Supreme Court. Well, that should be examined. American people should know that. They should know that Biden's Attorney General, who claimed, selected a hitman to do this. He didn't select a fair and impartial prosecutor. He selected a guy who was over-the-top anti-Trump and over-the-top unethical. Which makes him unethical, huh? Well, he's a lot worse than that. So the gag order has now would not allow Trump to say anything about that at the trial. The gag order interferes with his right to defend himself. And there's no trial going on now. No trial at all. They've had plenty of protection. And nobody, in the case of the Supreme Court justices, when they were under attack, Schumer egged them on. Schumer told me, you're just not going to be safe. And probably helped create the atmosphere in which the threat to Justice Kavanaugh's life was done. So we'll be back in a minute or two, and finally we find out exactly why our intelligence in the late 90s and the 2000s has been so poor. Said.
We're having the biggest sale ever on overstock clearance and brand new products. For example, save 60% on our Goose Down comforters, the best comforters ever. They go perfectly with our MyPillow bed sheets and duvet covers. Save 25% on our brand new kitchen towels. They're made with the same technology as our famous My Towels. Our initial quantities are extremely low, so get them now before they go. Our seasonal flannel sheets are finally in. You save up to 50% and they sell out fast every year, so order now. They're truly the best flannel sheets you'll ever sleep on. Or save up to 80% on all our clearance items. And this is where it gets even better. For a limited time, your entire order ships absolutely free. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use that promo code to get deep discounts on all MyPillow products. And for a limited time, your order ships absolutely free.
You know, this thing about the spies who lied. That was the front page of the Post when they finally were revealed. I mean, this really upset me a great deal. First of all, I spent my life being anti-communist. It almost defines me. A Republican, a Democrat, whatever I was. I came from a family where both my parents, one Democrat, one Republican, were fiercely anti-communist. And you might remember that not only did I throw Arafat out of the United Nations, it was Castro also. Castro always perplexed me because Hollywood loved him so much. And he used to kill homosexuals when we called them homosexuals, gay people. He used to kill them. And he definitely killed people with AIDS until we understood what AIDS was. I mean, it's a little like the Queers for Palestine. What, are they crazy? Stupid? Queers for Palestine? Are you kidding me? One part of Palestine, you go to jail for 10 years. The other part of Palestine, you get stoned. Really good idea if they win that war. Help spread the Iranian empire. You don't like it in Iran. I understand they got very, very nice prisons for gay people. That's if you get to prison. Well, the spies who lie knew for sure when they were signing it, they were lying. They knew it because they never bothered to check. They had to get it in quickly so it could be used in that debate. And they just put their name on it, irregardless of whether it was true or not, even though it affected dramatically the reputation of two Americans, two famous Americans, right? I was a U.S. attorney, the mayor of New York, and I was knighted by Queen Elizabeth and given high awards by every government. They kind of know who I am, and they're asserting that I'm acting for the Russian government with no proof. That's a hell of a way for my fellow countrymen to treat me. No proof. I mean, it was absurd from day one that it was a Russian. It was obvious. The man who gave it to us was identified immediately. And the idea that he didn't lose it is ridiculous. He lost two other hard drives or computers. The reality is maybe there's a psychology here. Maybe he wanted to get caught. Maybe he wanted to jam up his father. You listen to that. You listen to some of those tapes, particularly with the prostitute. It's this great love between him and his father. An awful lot of, there's also an awful lot of animosity. I think he knows somewhere in his addled brain that his father didn't have to do this to him. He didn't have to put him in charge of dealing with master criminals and traitors or make him a traitor to the United States. I mean, you don't think he was sending messages to China when Joe had all that intel from China? I mean, you really think that Joe took the classified material just for the hell of it, or to analyze it as personal papers the way Trump did. Trump didn't share it with anyone. He did. Right on the record. And I don't know that either one of them should be prosecuted for it. But I do know if you're going to prosecute Trump, you damn well better prosecute Biden as well, because he did worse than Trump. The Bolivian government had a coup. Just how far it's gone, I don't know, but they have made an effort through the military to overthrow the government of. I guess he's only been in office now a year. Arce, his name is, and he is a euphemistically described as a left wing. I would say a communist, and of course, in very short order, the economy is destroyed, and the army units launch an attack. They say, of course, Arce and his people say on communism. They're keeping all the money and letting people starve. And former President Evo Morales condemned it means it was the right thing to do. I mean, he was the dictator who took over that country and moved it all the way to the left. He had to flee the country in 2019, and has many charges as a major crook. See, the communists. A lot of people think communists are these do-gooders. They're not do-gooders. They're do-gooders for money, and they end up being the rich people in town. You end up being the poor people in town, and then when they have no use for you, they kill you. China's reach has been extraordinary. Another reason why we need Trump. Trump is the first president that actually is aware of that and has done something about it. All the rest of them, I mean, Mayor Adams in New York is under investigation. I think this is the investigation that where it was timed so that a very big raid was done as he was organizing a group of mayors to go complain to Biden about how Biden had created their illegal immigrant problem. And he made a big thing about the fact he was going to go down to Washington, and Biden had finally given him a meeting. And I think Ted and I were just getting off a plane, and Ted noticed it first, and he said, Adams is trying to get a meeting with the president, but the president is searching his house right now. This is the investigation of using money for all these trips. So when he was borough president of Brooklyn, he took 6 trips to China. The Chinatown's in Manhattan, Mr. Mayor. What are you doing in China all that time? You don't have a job in New York? I left the United States when I was the mayor once to go to Canada, once to go to Puerto Rico and Dominican Republic, twice to go to Israel. I think that's it. If I did another one, I did another one. But the trips to Israel were brutal. I did them in like 2 working days. I believe the mayor has to be there. The city creates a very close relationship with its mayor in New York, and you got to know if you're running for it, it's a very, very demanding job, and you can't be running off on trips to here and trips to there. Now, he wasn't the mayor then. He was the borough president, which is an anachronistic old position, but it's one from which people run for mayor, which is what he was doing. But there are a lot of big contracts are given out by them, and this one I think was double. And then by the way, the Red Chinese paid for some of Adam's trip. And then they might as well have been paying for the rest of it because it was paid for by the Sino-America New York Brooklyn Archway Association Corporation, which was set up really at the recommendation of the Soviets back in the 50s. They set up these friendship associations to basically create fairly easy lines to get spies in here. So that's who they're taking money from. Unbelievable. Well, New York did something right finally. They kicked one of the squad out, Bowman, not one of the leading ones, but one of the guy who has trouble with fire alarms. Doesn't know you're not supposed to turn them on inside buildings. But in any event, he was defeated very soundly by George Latimer by 12-15%. And I think this latest raid on him, the way he handled it, probably didn't help him at all in trying to convince people that he's like a straight, honest guy. On the other hand, I don't think Assange is the criminal of the decade. And he got the information, and it all was very, very relevant, even before we were thinking about it for its use as a criminal thing, because the Biden Jill thing wasn't known when we first got it, and it was still very, very valuable. And they've done a good job there. So Assange was picked up, and he's being held. Well, he got arraigned in the northern Mariana Islands, which is a U.S. territory, and then he was going somewhere. But I guess it is. They're trying to keep it as secret as possible so he can enjoy his honeymoon. But I don't know. This is also getting a little. It's a little fishy because the president's lying about it, as he always does. White House says we had nothing to do with it. The president said a few weeks ago he would consider a pardon for him. He would consider it. He'd consider a deal for him. I mean, he had expressed an interest in it, and then they just went ahead and did it without consulting him. Sounds like another Biden lie, doesn't it? Does he tell the truth about anything? At all? Anything. Well, our Secretary of Transportation, we have a picture of our Secretary of Transportation, Rachel Levine. Well, it'd be worth having a picture, but not. She got really upset because an international organization had put some age limits on when you could treat a child with hormones, and then even more important, when you can mutilate the child. And the age limits were put on, and you're not allowed to criticize them or do anything. And the people in Brooklyn held a rally, to try to deal with this. And the Biden administration is completely on the other side. There's Rachel there. Is that her name, Rachel? What is her? I mean, her name, she has all these names. She was an admiral, right?
Right.
Was she okay, now tell me let's get it straight so I don't screw it up. This is a guy, Rachel here, right? She was originally a man. Right?
I have to look. I don't know much. I have to, yeah. That's my understanding. Transition from a man.
So now she's a woman.
That's my understanding, yeah.
Am I allowed to ask the key question? Does she have the thing that men have? Has she kept it?
Yeah, I couldn't tell you, Mayor.
We don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know if she kept it.
Not a clue.
Don't you think we should know so that we can stop her from going into ladies' rooms if Well, this law, if I recall correctly, set up, and it came from a pretty liberal European organization. It's set up like at 15 you could have hormones, and at 16 you could have other treatments, and at 16 you could have your genitals removed. Doesn't anything about consent of the parents. So basically, the Democrat Party is all in agreement on this. I mean, she went and got them to change it so they can mutilate more children. I'm sure the president loves the idea. He says he does. So, I mean, you're voting for a guy that wants to mutilate children. Is that because he's demented? Is that because he's stupid? Is that because he'll take any position he has to keep? It's not worth doing that in that job. It's not worth doing that job unless you really want to do it, because it's so damn hard. Well, tomorrow night, we're going to do something very different. And we're going to start doing something very different from here on in. We're going to start at 7 o'clock, and we're going to go to 9. And at 7 o'clock, we're going to be on Frank's network, right? That's right. And we're going to be on numerous other ones, which I'll give you tomorrow night. And then we'll be here at 8 o'clock on X and all of the networks that we have here. So we'll have 2 shows. There'll be a little interruption between the 2, but it'll give us a chance to cover more topics in more depth and have guests and panel discussions and other things that I really have been dying to do, because I want to get this into your thinking as quickly as possible so we can affect the election, because the election is so darn important to us. Just want to see if anything came up recently. Justice Alito slams Biden for inflammatory comments in Supreme Court's COVID disinformation case. You know, this whole disinformation thing is so dangerous because there's no objective definition of that. So what you saw him participate in, where he accused me of Russian disinformation, it turns out they were the ones giving the disinformation, right? But that's too mild a word. I mean, when he said that his son never got any money from foreign sources, I mean, that's completely ridiculous. I mean, his son got plenty of money from foreign sources, and he knew about it. And he knew about the hard drive way back. And our guys, Barr and Ray, sat on it. Isn't that an obstruction of justice? I think so. I'll never understand it. Never understand it. It perplexes me completely that they'd let that impeachment go ahead without this most relevant piece of exculpatory evidence. Well, I want to thank you very, very much for listening in tonight. We got a big one to prepare for tomorrow. Maybe it'll turn out that the debate was all big hype over nothing and nothing will happen. It won't affect it. But somehow I don't think that's the case. Somehow I think this will be very close to decisive.
Biden's lucky he got those 2 breaks on in there. We had 2 breaks. You don't have breaks like that in presidential debates. I believe so. Look, they can put stuff on his legs and structures or braces basically, so I'm not as concerned about
you could put a little
about that. Him getting the 2 breaks is, I think, the biggest
braces
win. The 2 breaks, yeah, they could put braces on his legs, right?
Breaks, yeah, breaks.
But the 2 breaks, I think that's the biggest win for him. Imagine if he starts breaking down 20 minutes in without the breaks. He's got to hang in there for another hour. With the breaks, 10 minutes in, 10 minutes later, there's a break, right? 30 minutes in, 60 minutes in. If it's a 90-minute debate, he's got to just make it 30 minutes at a time instead of lasting 90 full minutes. I don't seem to think you, Mayor, and you're maybe the most experienced. You're probably the expert on U.S. presidential debates, right? It's a very small circle, and you, of course, are in a unique position where you've taken part in them and worked with many candidates.
If you want to say, if you want to prove that he has dementia, every single thing he did would be circumstantial evidence that he does. I mean, you could have had other reasons for it, but that doesn't matter. It would still come in a case to show that he knows that he has a mental defect that's very, very serious. Why would he ask to sit down? Why would he ask for breaks? Right?
Right.
Why would he ask that the mic be shut off so he doesn't have to go more than 2 minutes? And 2 minutes is the magic point, doctors tell me, for people with dementia. It's after the 2 minute mark that they begin swerving away and thinking about something else, which is almost involuntary. So I don't think we've ever had a debate where we were watching the guy like we're psychiatrists or something.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Well, we'll be back tomorrow night. Plenty to cover. We'll, of course, focus on the debate. Get you ready for it. But we'll also keep you up to date on the other things that you need to know to be an informed American citizen, because they don't want you to be informed. They want you to be as uninformed as possible so you can be brainwashed. And we're not going to let them get away with it, right? Right. Well, God bless the people of Israel, and God bless the people in New York. Please give us wisdom, God. And God bless America.
And to close out, we got a surprise special little clip from the 2008 presidential debate cycle.
Question I didn't get to ask before. When you said if General Petraeus comes back in September and reports that things aren't going well, what are we going to do? But suppose General Petraeus comes back in September and reports that things are going pretty well. Are we going to report that with the same amount of attention that we would report the negative news?
Jennifer, go ahead. Kaisa Krusco is here with us tonight.
Bear the principle of common sense and rational discussion to the issues of our day. America was created at a time of great turmoil, tremendous disagreements, anger, hatred. It was a book written in 1776 that guided much of the discipline of thinking that brought to us the discovery of our freedoms, of our God-given freedoms. It was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, written in 1776, one of the first American bestsellers, in which Thomas Paine explained, by rational principles, the reason why these small colonies felt the necessity to separate from the Kingdom of Great Britain and the King of England. He explained their inherent desire for liberty, for freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the ability to select the people who govern them. And he explained it in ways that were understandable to all the people, not just the elite. Because the desire for freedom is universal. The desire for freedom adheres in the human mind, and it is part of the human soul. This is exactly the time we should consult our history. Look at what we've done in the past and see if we can't use it to help us now. We understand that our founders created the greatest country in the history of the world, the greatest democracy, the freest country, a country that has taken more people out of poverty than any country ever. All of us are so fortunate to be Americans. But a great deal of the reason for America's constant ability to self-improve is because we're able to reason, we're able to talk,